Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Careers at IIM Ahmedabad. We are starting this series with a very simple objective in mind, and that is to give people real ground level knowledge of different career paths that exist post MBA. In order to do so, we plan on inviting folks who have already walked down that career path and then unpacking their own respective journeys and respective career paths very candidly with them. So, for the first episode, we are starting with consulting, which arguably is one of the most sought after careers that people think about after their MBA. And in order to talk about it, we've got someone who knows this world quite well and is one of our own alumni, Vatsala. Thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us here. How does it feel to be back on campus?
Not at all. Thank you so much for inviting me. It feels fantastic to be back in campus. This is CR10. This is my class actually.
Oh, this was your class?
Yes, and that's where I used to sit.
Okay.
And it feels so good to be back. I think the air here feels very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's been raining since the past 3 days. So I think it's the campus calling you. Yeah, the campus calling you back.
It's been great. I think all the professors, just the memories that we have, across the corridors in the class. I think everything is just rushing back. It feels very nice to be back.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being here. So before we dive in, let me just quickly set the context as to who this discussion is targeted towards. So we are essentially targeting all the consulting aspirants that either want to enter consulting, maybe right after graduation, or maybe experienced professionals who want to pivot into consulting and are not really aware of how to do that. So that would be our general target audience. Any listener that listens to this video, we want them to have 4 things clear. Firstly, what exactly is consulting, right? Because there is this entire black box around consulting. People don't know what consulting is all about. Secondly, what does the market look like with the advent of AI and all?
Yeah.
Thirdly, how to get in. And finally, how does a 1-year MBA fit into this entire picture?
Got it.
Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Cool. So let's begin with quick intros so that people know who we are. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, definitely. So a bit about me is I have close to 7 years of experience. Obviously, I did my MBA from, IIM Ahmedabad. But prior to that, I worked in multiple firms. I started my career with CRISIL as part of a credit ratings team. After that stint, I moved on to Deloitte, followed by BDO and Grant Thornton. Primarily, I worked in risk consulting, risk and forensic consulting. After that, I went into political consulting. I did that for a year and a half. Then I came to this beautiful place. And right now, I work with EY and I'm part of the AI strategy team.
Lovely. That's great. As for me, I'm Satyam.
Yes.
I am currently pursuing my 1-year MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and also heading the Consult Club cell for the PGPX cohort. Before this, I did around 5.5 years at Bain & Company, working in the private equity practice. It's just been 3 months that I left the corporate life and came all the way to Ahmedabad back to this classroom. But I think one of the things that have been really interesting to me, at least in the past 3 months, are the discussions that I've been having with my batchmates. And based on the discussions I'm having, one thing that I'm gauging is that a lot of people here are very interested about consulting, but they're not really sure how to get into consulting. Or rather, if I take a step back, they're not really sure about what consulting actually is. So I think that's a good enough subject, that's a good subject for us to start with, right? So if I were to ask you, how would you define consulting in very simple terms?
See, very simply put, consulting is problem solving. There's a problem, you go solve it. That's consulting all about. But this is, what I'm saying is extremely broad, right? But in my opinion, I would bucket it into 3 categories. One is the most talked about, obviously, strategic consulting.
Right.
Primarily, the kind of problems you solve in strategic consulting or are what kind of markets do we enter in, what kind of products do we introduce in the market, and what kind of acquisition or merger we can do and things like that. It's a lot at a business level, how a business is basically navigating its way into either a new product, new market, or things like that. The second bucket would be transformation and implementation consulting, where core business processes are involved. How do we implement an ERP in in a company, or how do we reduce costs, or what kind of processes should be improved, process improvement, AI transformation, digital transformation.
Right.
And the third and the last bucket is specialized consulting. Like, for example, I come from political consulting. It's again a very specialized area of consulting. It's pretty new and quite niche.
Right.
Infra consulting, energy consulting, very, very specific to that industry. I think this is how I would classify and categorize the industry.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think I resonate with that completely. Just a question there. I think with the advent of AI here, do you think specialized consulting roles are on the up as compared to, let's say, 5 years back, where, let's say, I'm not saying generalist consulting roles are not, are not important anymore. I'm sure they are very important. But at the same time, I think the importance that we're giving and importance that clients are now giving to specialized consulting roles, I personally see that to be on the rise. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. It is on the rise. Like you said, general consulting overall, when we are looking at the market, the roles genuinely are coming down.
Right.
But the roles on the specialized consulting are increasing, because every single industry right now, across any market that you take, any country that you take, are trying to fit into the entire AI space. So that's where consultants come in and help you out by studying your business completely. These are experts who knows your value chain, who knows your business value chain, who can get into your core processes and tell you what can actually be done.
Right.
And definitely with the advent of AI, the roles, the opportunities for specialized consulting are definitely going up.
Agreed. Vatsala, when it comes to consulting, I'm sure you must be aware there are a lot of myths about consulting, like left, right, and center. I think we can name a lot of them, but I would love if we could just focus on one particular myth that at least I see around in the classroom and around my batch. So a lot of people that I had a discussion with, they are of the opinion, and rather they believe that if they have certain amount of work X, let's say over 5 years of work X, then it's almost impossible for them to pivot into consulting, because according to them, consulting is only suited for people who are at the initial stages of their career, right? Or to get into those entry-level strategy roles. But given that you have, your experience and with your journey, I think you have overcome that. So what are your thoughts on that particular myth? I know it's a myth, but I would love to hear from you.
See, it definitely is a myth. But I think what primarily we need to understand is right now a lot of companies are no more hiring in traditional ways.
Right.
Back then it was a lot to do with, you're 21, 22, you go straight out of college, do it, and maybe go for an MBA and then target the roles and go on. But right now, with so much happening around us, that's no more the way, I think if you want to get into consulting, I will not give you a very straight answer of, go and network. But I think you need to tell the world out there, you need to tell the companies out there that you're really interested. Like, it need not be through a placement process, It's as simple as, pick an industry you like.
Right.
Like, let's say energy, let's take infra, let's take AI for that matter. Let's say you're interested in something, you have access to LinkedIn, post content. It need not be like 5 pages or, extremely long content. What you think about the industry? What is your view? Form an opinion. Tell the world that this is your opinion. You might not get it right in the first go.
Right.
But you have to understand that only the crying baby gets the milk. Like Professor Bala always says, the crying baby gets the milk.
Yeah.
Keep posting content. You have LinkedIn, you have Substack. Send out cold emails. And immediately when you send out a cold email, I think one thing I've also noticed is that, when you send out an email, you immediately ask for a job opportunity. Don't do that.
Yeah.
What is proof of work? You have, number one, let's say you're coming from a non-strategy or a non-consulting background. You can't just go up and say, hey, why don't you give me a job? You need to tell that, hey, I'm interested in this area. This is what, I think about, this is my opinion. This is on a concept. What is your view? I'd love to connect. Go out, meet people, tell them this is what, I think about a particular sector, and follow it closely. If you really want it, I think you should do all of this, because you would be doing this when you are employed in that particular role. So I feel prior, if you do that, there is proof of concept. And the next thing is, I think you need to be, you should not be nonchalant. You should be extremely chalant. Be shameless, be persistent, go and speak with people, put yourself out there. I think the market has to know what's the worst thing that can happen. You never know when there is an opportunity that comes up. Let's say you're approaching this person A, and an opportunity comes up. Let's say you've sent some 50 solid emails to A, like quality emails. Don't you think that person will actually think about you for a second?
Definitely.
Why would I give that opportunity to someone who's randomly sent me a cold email saying, hey, why don't you consider me for a job? So I think the traditional ways of hiring are no more there. I see so many posts on LinkedIn, true verified posts, not random posts,
Of course.
from companies who right now, openly admit that we took this person not because of where they are from, because this person had an opinion on this and has been consistent about telling their opinion to the world about the sector or about consulting or whatever. So I think you have a lot of opportunity now. It's not as difficult as it was earlier.
I agree. I think I do agree. But do you think because you also did a 1-year MBA here at IIM Ahmedabad and at the PGPX cohort, so what role did that particular, let's say, program played in making this? It wasn't a pivot for you, but let's say you must be knowing people in your batch who must be coming from non-consulting backgrounds. Do you think this particular program, the 1-year MBA that IIM Ahmedabad offers, allowed them to make that pivot or facilitated that jump?
I think 100%. I know live examples from my batch who made that pivot. I know actually someone from the defense, from the armed forces rather, from the armed forces who cracked tech consulting.
Very nice.
No tech background, learned everything from scratch, picked up projects, worked on multiple things, sat down till like 3 a.m. with the tech people of the batch, understood what every single thing in this world means, and cracked the interview. So there is proof of concept in the 1-year MBA, but you have to understand the kind of roles that come to you. You're already at a 4+ years of experience, so I don't think the target should be at a entry level, because you already understand business.
Because you're anyways bringing
that table, exactly. Right? So it's about how well you can adapt to work and get going.
Right.
We do have proof of concept in our own batch. Okay. I mean, even me, like, I'm not a tech person. I'm not an engineer. I'm a BCom.
But yet
I'm right now doing AI strategy. Yeah. So I think I would not agree if someone has to say that you can't make the pivot. Like, I did political consulting, did risk consulting. Both these domains are very, very different. Yeah, they are just like poles apart when you compare it with AI strategy. But right now, like, I'm doing AI strategy, and I think you need to be very curious. I think that's very important. Yeah. You need to know. I think that level of curiosity should come from within.
Got it. Sounds good. Let's shift gears and talk about the market itself, right? So AI, of course. How do we not talk about AI?
Yeah.
AI is the big elephant in the room for literally every industry right now.
True.
So according from where you're sitting right now, what does the consulting market look like according to you with AI now in the mix?
Like I mentioned earlier, the early roles are something that's currently being replaced by AI. And I think the whole consulting model is changing. Right. So I think it's still evolving. A lot of companies are already doing it, but I think we are yet to see where it's going. Right now, I think now AI strategy by itself has become a stream. Yeah. So, it's not like it's eating up opportunities. It's equally giving you opportunities. But yes, you can't, you need to understand business. You need to understand complexities. I think that's AI. That's something AI can't replace. There's a lot of human element that comes into consulting. I think that's something AI can't replace. But let's say that you are not going to upskill yourself. But when I say upskill, I don't mean a certification, a degree or anything like that. It's about, if you're, like I said, if you're not curious, if you're not constantly reading, if you're not trying to understand what's happening in the market, AI can easily replace you. See, AI is very good in giving you answers, but you should know to ask the right question. I think that's where we all come in as, experienced professionals, where sometimes the client also does not know the right question. That's where, we come in, we help. So those are the things which AI can't replace. But I think only time has to answer.
No, absolutely. I think I definitely agree. Even when I was in Bain, I saw that trend, because in the past 2-3 years, I think the number of jobs that we are seeing, at least on the headlines, is reducing. But I personally believe that AI is not necessarily replacing consulting per se, but it's rather retransforming how consulting adds value to the economy, right?
Correct.
So because earlier, the data crunching that we do, the research that we used to do, that was all manual, right?
Correct.
There were a lot of things that we used to do very repetitive. With AI, obviously, now we can do that very quickly. So that really gives us the bandwidth to now focus on more things.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think AI can give you the answers. It can solve the what of the equations, but it cannot solve the so what of the equation, right? So I think that's where I feel now I think it's more important for consultants to be more sharp, and they need to not just know how to use AI, but also how to challenge it, how to question it, how to know when... because I mean, unlike, and by consultants, I mean extension by humans also, right? Because only we can really understand the entire big picture. AI can work well on defined problems, defined patterns, but in case of ambiguity, be it a data, be it a situation, I think that's where humans and consultants will continue to prosper.
Yeah.
So,
but see, when you say job loss, I think that's the only area we concentrate, but we don't really talk about the various opportunities AI is creating as well.
Fair.
I mean, always the negative news comes first. I'm not saying there is no job loss. There is job loss. But I think, at least right now, we're all at an intersection where we're also trying to figure out how much AI is going to help us from a business angle.
Right.
Because AI is just not chat GPTing and, Claude asking Claude a question, finishing assignment. It's just not that, right? When you implement it at an enterprise level, the kind of returns it's going to give and everything is still, under research. Everyone's trying to figure out.
Right.
But I think we need to start changing our skill set. Data crunching is no more required, but there's something else that's come up that's required. So I think you should also start pivoting into that. You should start learning skills that are very important that's coming up right now.
Fair. I think we've already touched upon the next question, but it was more to do with what, according to you, consultants do better that AI still cannot do. But I think we've already touched upon that. But irrespective, if there is anything in particular that you would like to share based on your current experience at EY, which you think that, okay, this is something that I would rather trust a consultant to do and not AI, or not totally depend on AI, what would that be?
I think judgment. See, with whatever we work on and everything, obviously everybody uses any kind of AI in their work, but it's the level of judgment. Like, see, still it's like a baby. It'll still try to impress me. Let's say it tries to understand your emotion. Let's say I say that, this is not good, this is bad. It starts giving me outputs that impresses me, right? But that ideally may not fit the situation, that ideally may not fit the problem. It won't give you a solution. So I think the judgment factor is still something AI is not cracked. It basically reacts to what you are saying. Right. So I think judgment is the most important thing. It's yet to crack.
Right. No, fair. I think we can move to the next segment, and that I think is something that the listeners will definitely be interested in knowing. How do you get in consulting? It's a very open-ended question, I'm aware, but how do you get into consulting?
See, like I would look at it from two angles. One, from you're a fresher, you're starting, and second, you're experienced. But when I say experienced, it's 4 or 5 years in a particular field. Mainly because in the first 5 years, you're also my opinion is that you're also figuring out your life, your career, what you want to do. So the market also understands that. I think from an Indian context, obviously you can, when you finish your undergrad, you do have placement privilege. So, you can always apply to companies that align more with either in industry or consulting, any kind of consulting roles. When I say industry, it's because you start becoming subject matter experts.
Right.
So let's say after that you want to pivot into consulting, you bring a subject, an SME point of view there. And like I said, right now hiring is become very different. It's no more traditional. So I think I'll go back to my answer of read a lot, be curious, because I think curiosity is something that can't be taught. I can teach you a framework, but curiosity is something that I can't teach you. That's very, very difficult. You need to find out. And I think a typical answer would be like, do case interviews and everything. But I think when you read, let's say you're reading an article, try to find out if there is any issue, there are any macro issues that's going on. There is any micro issue that's going on. When you're reading a particular thing, see beyond what is given to you, in an article.
Right.
I think when you start doing all of these things, you start making connections, you can crack into it, because it's a very difficult straight answer. I can't give a straight answer for this, but I think, put out content, reach out to people, network. If you're in India, let's say you get consulting roles, take it. But one thing which I would definitely like to, iterate on is that I see a lot of people being very rigid, saying that, if it's strategy consulting in this particular area, that means I'll go only here.
Okay.
You can try interim roles also that will eventually lead you to consulting. If consulting is your dream, I think you need to try something in between. Like, let's say it's as simple as taking an unpaid internship. Would you be able to go and learn the work without anyone paying you anything? Or let's say a life project, let's say a thesis that you're working on, which you're ready to put out there for no compensation. I'm not just saying monetary compensation for anything. You might not get anything in return.
Right.
Are you ready to do that? Just don't be very fixated that if I decide that I have to go here, then my next shift will be only there. No, there are a lot of things you can do in interim. So I think you have to do all of that.
Makes sense. I think then the takeaway is be chalant.
Yes.
And don't be myopic.
Yeah.
Right?
The cry baby gets the milk.
Okay. Lovely. You were doing consulting before MBA. You're doing consulting post MBA. I think you've been on both sides. How, if I were to ask you, what do firms, or rather, how do you think the process is different for candidates who are applying for fresher jobs versus candidates who are applying for experienced consulting roles? Like, do you see any difference in the kind of questions, in the kind of interviews that these recruiters take, or is it more or less the same?
See, yeah, there's definitely a difference, because I think from a mindset per se, a company is ready to invest their time on someone who has no experience, right? Because that's slightly on a larger scale. But for people with experience, I think one thing they definitely expect is for you to pick things on day one.
Right.
You get the business running, you're put into the world and you're asked to just solve a problem. I think it's still the case. There is some leeway that people with minimal experience get, because we also have to understand that they're also facing the world for the first time.
Fair.
But for people who already work, that's not the case. They know the workaround. They've done this drill. So I think it's just about readiness to take on work.
I think also there must be this nuanced understanding of the field you're coming from, right? So
100%.
If you don't have experience, if a recruiter is asking you about a new industry, there's only so much you can bring to the table.
Yes.
As compared to, let's say, if you get a case on public policy, or let's say political consulting for that matter, I think it won't be satisfactory for you to just give a very high level answer.
100%.
So I think with experienced folks, there is a additional level of nuance that would be expected from recruiters, right? I think that's safe to say.
Definitely. See, for specialized consulting, I think it would be a very different answer, but I'm just telling overall for consulting, this would apply.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we are in the final leg of the discussion. You are here, you're back in your classroom.
Yeah.
You have done the MBA. I think, how would you describe your PGPX experience? Again, a very open-ended question, but I'm sure you must be feeling nostalgic. So I think it's a good time to ask the question. How would you describe your experience? I think you graduated recently only.
Yeah, we graduated 3 months back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite fresh for you right now. How would you describe your experience?
I mean, I can't put it in just one sentence. I think it's been phenomenal. MBA was something that was always on my head for a very long time. I've had like a break in my career to do MBA. But unfortunately, it was COVID and all of that. But MBA looked at some point like an end goal for me. So I think when the admit also came, I looked at it 100 times. I think I just felt like if I just look away, maybe they'll just take this
I
offer
did that
from
too.
me.
Yeah, I did that too.
So I held it very, very close the entire day. I couldn't sleep and everything. And, when you get into such an institution with so much of legacy, your expectation is extremely high.
Right.
How many ever times you tell yourself that, don't expect too much from this journey?
Yeah.
That ideally does not happen. At the end of the day, I'm human too. But some way or the other, this place still exceeds your expectation. I think, when I just walk through LKP, I somehow feel that, there are so many minds that have just walked through this
Right.
space that I am right now in. I think that gives me sheer goosebumps till date.
Right.
And the opportunities that the college, the institute provides, the kind of people they help you meet is just fantastic. Like you can literally meet when I was here, Mr. Narayan Murthy had come to campus, and we had this entire auditorium booked. The auditorium was full, like I'm not even joking. It was full. And after the entire talk and everything was over, he was just coming. He was just, he was just there. Like he's like an ordinary person. And, he was talking to all of us. We were clicking photographs. And I think that's what this space gives. Like, I don't think I can ever go meet him in person. I mean, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can talk to him like you're talking to a colleague or a classmate.
Fair.
I think that's what this place gives you. I think if you're curious, if you're able to use the opportunity, I think that's great. And another thing which IIMA, I cannot speak for I don't know rather, I cannot speak for the others, but at least from my experience, something that I really love about IIMA is it gives you ownership. Like, you can curate this journey.
Right.
Nothing is forced upon you. As long as you want to curate it the way you want, you can do it. Like you do whatever you want. You can go meet people. At the same time, you can also relax. I think that's the best part. I think I've met fantastic people. I've worked on a great life project. I worked on a defense tech thesis with, with a venture capital. I don't think if IIM didn't happen, IIM Ahmedabad didn't happen, all of these wouldn't have happened in my life.
Fair. I think that's about it. It was wonderful to hear from you. Any last piece of advice, if you were to give for anyone for that matter, not just has to do with IIMA or anything, any consulting aspirant who's either trying to enter the sector or someone like who's experienced and want to pivot to consulting, any last piece of advice that you would like to offer to them?
I wouldn't call it advice, but I think just a food for thought would be like, don't go behind consulting because the world finds it to be cool. I think this is something genuinely a lot of people have come up and told me when I asked them, why do you want to do consulting? There's a lot of and all of that, and finally they say no, it's nice, right? When I go tell people that I'm in consulting, people look at me at a very like, I've done something great. I think just try to understand why you want to do it. It's okay if you have a half-baked answer. You don't need to have clarity all the time. Like,
Right.
I think I would be okay if you come and tell that, I just want to try it and see if this suits me. That's perfectly okay than doing something you think is cool. I think always think about it. Like, why do you want to do this? Because what happens is the going is very difficult.
Yeah.
So every time the going is difficult, I think the one answer you can go back to is why you chose it in the first place. It's okay to figure it out in the journey, but have at least a half-baked clarity over that. The second, like I said, I keep saying this to anyone who asks me about anything, is be curious. That is something no one can teach you. Keep reading nothing bad can happen. Nothing bad can actually come out of it. I think the only thing that can come out of it is something great, because you can actually go up and talk to anybody on any topic. Just be aware on what's happening. I think that's very, very important.
Absolutely. I think I'll definitely reiterate the first point at least.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's more important for people to really understand the different kind of roles that consulting has to offer, especially in today's time. I think that would, because a lot of people, at least what I've seen, they jump into strategy consulting for that matter, not having done their due diligence, and then they realize that that particular profile or that particular job is not really a good fit for them. So I think it's more important for people to really understand the different roles and functions that consulting has to offer, and then obviously figure out your why. If it makes sense for you, go for it. If not, then I think be it.
Like it's okay. Like there's nothing wrong about it, but just be slightly clear. I think that's okay. It can really be an experimentation, but I think you need to be honest about it.
Fair.
Let it be an experimentation, but be honest. Just go out and do it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Vatsala, for taking the time again. This was lovely.
Same here, but thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful. I mean, even prior to this, when I was talking to all of you, I think it's wonderful to be here.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.